Today is the first day of the rest of your life, and your future planning started yesterday. You need simple, easy strategies to create maximum results. This is The Scotty Show. Time to get your ducks in a row with Scott Leonardi, owner and president of Complete Solutions, Inc. As a certified financial fiduciary with 25 years in the planning industry, Scott helps educate you on how you can make the best decisions for your family and your finances, and helps you get your ducks in a row for your incredible future. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to The Scotty Show with Scott Leonardi. Scott, how are you?
I am awesome, sir. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, my friend. I know that we have a subject today. You've actually touched on this a little bit before, but you were really going to dive a little bit deeper, I think, into the A, B, C, and D's of Medicare, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is a pretty big worry, pretty big concern for most retirees because, of course, health care is pretty important to figure out. What's my options, what's my benefits, and kind of understanding in a confusing topic is kind of important.
Yeah, and I know that you want to set the foundation right off the bat, so the easy question is, what is Medicare?
Well, Medicare, it's interesting. Medicare is designed and was developed as a way to help retirees pay for health care. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people think Medicare is their get all, pay for all their health care. No, it's designed to help pay for their health care. Just like Social Security was designed to help you with retirement income, wasn't designed to cover everything. So obviously having that initial starting point is great, but we have to supplement it with something.
All right, so let's go back in history just a little bit. I've got a two-part question here. How long has Medicare been around? And then the other piece of that is that I know Social Security was built way back in the day for a very specific purpose. And I've heard people say that like Social Security wasn't built for today's day and age, right? So it's a little bit different, and there's concerns about Social Security. And I know that this is not about that, but is Medicare similar in its situation?
Well, yeah, you're pretty accurate on that statement that you just made. Medicare is kind of a little similar. I mean, Social Security started in like 1935 was kind of the beginning point. Medicare kind of started in the neighborhood of 1965-ish, but so it was a different time frame. But you're right, it was completely different than today's generation. I mean, obviously people are living a lot longer. People are taking better care of themselves. A lot more medical options today, and a lot more people are just around. People are living longer, so that number is growing at an astronomical rate. As a matter of fact, depending on what article you read, you'll read anywhere from 8,500 to 10,000 people every single day turn 65. And those people are dumped into the Medicare program. So you can imagine the amount of people coming in, people living longer, that number is growing, by an alarming rate. There's no question about that.
Yeah, so which leads to other concerns, right? I mean that this is why we're having this podcast, but who pays for Medicare, right? I mean, and then how is it funded? And piggybacking off of that, I'm not trying to throw all the questions at you at once, but when you think about that, you've got to answer the question, how is it possibly going to sustain itself if 8,500 to 10,000 people a day are getting dumped into the system?
Yeah, those are all valid worries and valid concerns. So no question about that. Today's society, when you're working, obviously you have a job, you pay a variety of taxes out of your paycheck for a variety of situations. Of course, one of them is a Medicare tax. So of course, if you've been working, you've been paying Medicare taxes for years and years. So that Medicare taxes are designed to help cover Medicare. But of course, that's not the only thing, because when you do qualify for Medicare, you become eligible to start your Medicare program, which is typically at 65. The first day of the month you actually turn 65 is when you're typically eligible for Medicare. That's usually in just regular basic eligibility. Now, you can qualify for Medicare early, but really only in one situation, that's because of a disability. So somebody that has health issues, mental issues, those type of things, they become disabled, and usually after 2 years of disability, they assume you're probably not going to come out of that disability, so they'll automatically put you on Medicare. But normally it's the first day of the month you turn 65. But just because you qualify for Medicare doesn't mean it's all covered. So, the two basic parts to Medicare, matter of fact, the only two parts to Medicare that's part of Medicare is Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B. And we'll talk about kind of the details of those here in just a minute. But Medicare Part A, generally speaking, is the hospital, and that, in essence, is free. Now, I hate to say free because, like I said, you've been paying taxes your whole life into the system. But when you sign up for Medicare Part A, you won't have a premium payment in most cases, as long as you qualified or your spouse is qualified. So that Part A is zero. But Medicare Part B, there is a monthly premium for that. So that's kind of important to understand. There is some additional costs with Medicare, not just your tax dollars that you paid. And again, the thought process is as time goes on, more people get dumped into the program. We're seeing these numbers go up, and let's face it, it's going to have to, right? I mean, those numbers are going to have to change to keep covering people.
Yeah. So again, that brings up that concern. I know that you covered two ways that it's funded, but is there enough to sustain us? Is it going to go broke? Is that a concern on the horizon or not?
Well, I think it's always a worry, and not to think back and forth anything political at all. But let's just face facts: the more numbers that get put into the system, as we see, people are living longer. Claims, medical expenses are getting more and more expensive. Some adjustments and changes have to be made. I always tell people, listen, you can't worry. Will this Medicare process and the systems change? You can't worry about that because it will change. What you can do is just make the best healthcare decision based on what you know today. And then tomorrow, we make the best healthcare decision based on what we know tomorrow. And, just speaking of the cost factors, the Medicare Part B, again, once you get on Medicare, first day of the month you turn 65 is the initial starting point. But that Medicare Part B premium is a per-person premium. So $170.10 is the current Medicare Part B premium per person. Now, I always say that's the starting point because if you are what they consider a high-income earner, then you could pay more. You will pay more than the $170.10. And, of course, those numbers change. Every year these numbers kind of adjust and change. And what they do is they look back 2 years. So if you're going on to Medicare in 2022, they're going to look back to 2020 to see what you earned, you and your spouse if you filed joint. And if you're over the limit, then again, you will pay more than the $170.10. I've got some information, a Medicare guidebook that I'd love to send out to somebody. So I hate to throw all these numbers and quote all these numbers out there because it's just too much to absorb. But, if you'd like to get our planning booklet, our Medicare planning booklet, you can just reach out to us. You can actually go to our website, duckduckplan.com. I wrote a little book in there. It's called the Duck Book, People That Are 65 and Beyond, and it helps you understand some of these factors and some of the costs involved with Medicare. Because again, understanding that process is going to be an important task, right? To make the decisions you need to make.
Let me ask you this: Does everybody need to sign up for Medicare? And if everybody does, what happens if somebody doesn't or forgets or they don't sign up correctly?
Well, that's a great question. So when it gets time that you're eligible for Medicare, and again, the first day of the month you turn 65, I tell people really there can be potentially three options. Number one, you could be on a group plan, and you could be on a group plan maybe some with a health insurance that's paid for by your employer, or you can be on a group plan through your spouse's employer. So as long as you're on a credible group coverage, a group plan, you do not have to sign up for Medicare. You don't have to sign up at 65. You can stay on that group plan. Mm-hmm. Now again, if the group plan makes sense, I tell people, right? So we have to take a look at the numbers, depending on what the premium is they're charging you for that, right? And then what your out-of-pocket copays and deductibles are, that'll determine whether the staying on the group plan kind of makes sense. But at some time in the future, you'll come off the group plan, right? So, you'll finally decide to retire, or your wife, if it's on your wife's plan, she retires. And then again, now you're kind of forced off that group plan. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of option number one. So some people believe they have to go sign up for Medicare at 65 no matter what. And that is not true. And the reason why they hear that is because somebody said, hey, you're going to have big fat penalties if you don't do that, if you don't sign up at 65. And that's not true. You may have penalties if, again, the big fat key is you don't have credible group coverage currently. And so that's kind of one of the key factors. So again, that credible group coverage is option number one until you come off that plan. Or you could have a retiree group plan. Maybe you work with the federal government and you're on one of the retiree plans, or some companies still have some retiree group coverage they'll give you that can be part of your Medicare secondary, your Medicare supplement. But in most of those situations, if you're on the retiree group plan, then you're going to have to sign up for Medicare A and B to make it all correspond and work together. So that's kind of option one. Option number two is the traditional Medicare supplements out there. Traditional Medicare supplements have been around since 1965. That's a program where you actually just pay a premium. So I was saying it's an additional premium because in addition to what? Well, when you get on that Medicare A and B, you're going to be paying for the Medicare Part B, right? That $170.10 per person. So on a Medicare supplement, you're going to pay an additional premium. But in that type of a situation, you'll usually have one small deductible for the year. So for an example, we talked about how good insurance could be come 65, right? You sign up for a Medicare supplement, let's say a G plan, one of the most common plans out there. With that plan, you have one deductible, $233 once a year towards your doctor bills. That's it. Everything else is covered at 100%. Would you say that's pretty good coverage, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody has a couple $100 deductible and that's it. Usually we experience a $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 deductible and then an 80/20 up to $5,000 or $6,000. So yeah, that's pretty awesome coverage. Now that one deductible applies towards your doctors and hospitals, all your medical type stuff. Your drugs are fall under a whole other category. So if we do the traditional supplement, we would sign up for a drug plan. Now, it depends on what state you're in. Most states have 23 to 25, 28 different drug plans.
Wow.
So the key is finding out what drug plan makes the most sense to you, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and of course, medications are probably a big concern with most people out there. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I want to follow that up because I'm not even close to Medicare age yet. I like to think I'm not very close, but I'm getting closer every day, right?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But I actually got a letter in the mail from my healthcare provider that one of the medications I'm on, the name brand that I'm on, is not going to be covered this for 2022. So I know that other people face this. I'm assuming that Medicare people face this as well, or people that are on Medicare. I'm assuming that the coverages can change and say, well, we're not going to cover this med, so they have to change plans, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And the problem with medications today is they can be absurd. I mean, the costs can be ludicrously absurd. And I've seen some of those medications, and God forbid you're on 2 or 3, 4 brand drugs under the same categories. I mean, you talk about some huge numbers. So you're right. I mean, most states out there, 23 to 28 different drug plans available to you. So I always tell you that the best plan for you, the plan that fits you the most, is the one that saves us the most money based on your medications. So you can't just look at the premium. You can't just sign up for the cheapest drug plan. You can't sign up for the most expensive drug plan. You really have to analyze which plan is going to fit you based on the drugs. And again, that's kind of where we come in place. People can try to figure this out themselves, but I tell people, use a professional. Call our office. We'll be happy to step through that with you. We can help determine what drug plan makes the most sense to you based on medications. Because again, I've had people walk in the office and they say, well, listen, I want that $7 plan. My brother's on it. It's the cheapest out there. That's the one I want. And I glance over their medications and I'm saying, you do not want that drug plan. But let me show you why. It's about your medication costs, right? And what you mentioned a second ago with what you're going through happens on a regular basis. So at the end of the year, a lot of times you'll get letters that say, hey, listen, the drug that you've been taking, it's not going to be on the formulary next year. Well, what's the formulary? Formulary is just a list of medications covered by your plan. So that kind of leads me into the next situation. Once you pick your plan and you decide to go with a plan that you think is going to be best for you, that needs to be reviewed annually. See, all of our clients get a letter about September saying, hey, listen, fill out this list. Give me a list of your medications. I want to start comparing all the plans that are available to you next year. Because like I said, perfect example, you're on an expensive medication. They take that off your formulary. We don't want to find out about that in February or March when you go get it refilled, right? And now all of a sudden you got to pay 100% of the cost. Because if it's not on the formulary, you can still get it, can't you? You can get it, but who pays 100% of it?
Exactly. Me.
You. And again, some of those medications are, again, absurd. So picking the right plan and having it reviewed annually kind of makes sense.
Let me ask you this, just on that piece. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but with those letters that go out, do they give maybe generic options or options that would be the same medication just in a different form? Or is it something where usually they're just not covering that type of medication, so you actually have to change plans fully?
Well, kind of a yes and no on all that. Okay. So sometimes you'll get a couple different recommendations on the similar type plan, but a lot of times they want to refer you back to your doctor and say, hey, listen, talk to your doctor, find out what medications may be similar to what you're taking that could be a generic. Back time up 10, 15 years ago, you didn't much care about that, right? Your doctor said, hey, take this medication, and you listened to what your doctor said, you went and took the medication. And most time it was covered by your group health plan. Today, you just can't do that. You got to ask the doctor more questions. You got to say, hey, can I take a generic of this? Is a generic available? What else can I take that would do the same thing that could be less expensive? You got to be more of a consumer shopper when it comes to some of that stuff. Because, again, drug costs are pretty important. Now, if it boils down to it, you're on a brand drug, and this is the only one, there's no generic, this is the only one you can get, and it's expensive, well, now you got to kind of weigh that out. I mean, it's more important to have better health and have good comfort and be able to be pain-free and whatever. Yeah. I mean, your quality of life is more important than than a bigger deductible, right? So suck it up, pay what you have to pay if you need to, again, but you need to question that. Ask, are there alternatives? Kind of shop around, because drug costs are very, very expensive, very costly.
Yeah. And I know that the title of this podcast is the ABCs and Ds of Medicare, but really, let's break it down. How many letters are there? Because it seems like there's a whole lot of different types of plans.
Whole bunch of different things. Yeah. So the first of all is Medicare only consists of two. The two original parts to Medicare: Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B. Mm-hmm. Again, Medicare Part A, generally speaking, is hospitalization coverage. No cost to join that. You paid taxes and got in there. Medicare Part B is the doctor portion, or the medical portion. I tell people anything a doctor prescribes, or does falls under Medicare Part B, and of course that's a mess. And of course that's the one we have to pay that premium for. Now let me also say, generally speaking, everybody has to pay a premium, and you could pay more based on your earnings, but there are some situations where you may not pay the Medicare Part B premium. And the only way that occurs is based on low income. Now, that would be Medicaid or Medi-Cal or whatever state you live in, but it's the Medicaid welfare portion. So sometimes retirees say, well, Medicare, Medicaid. Well, I have both of those. Well, no, you have Medicare is the retiree health plan. Medicaid is state help. So again, A and B of Medicare is the two original parts. And of course, the newer version to this is Medicare Part D. What do you think Part D is?
Drugs.
Ta-da! Yeah, it's medications,
right?
Ta-da! Yeah, Medicare Part D. So yeah, so if we join that Medicare supplement, that traditional Medicare supplement I mentioned, we also have to sign up for a drug plan. Medicare Part D. And again, we have to pick the plan that makes the most sense based on our medications. And again, we'll be happy to kind of help you with that. So either you have A and B of Medicare with a Part D and a supplement. You either have that option, or what a lot of people are hearing about that's become pretty popular, very, very popular, and that's called Medicare Advantages, which is Part C, right? Medicare Advantage is Part C. Mm-hmm. So with the Medicare Advantage plan, I kind of call those a pay-as-you-go plan. Pay-as-you-go plan. Okay. The majority of those are zero monthly premiums. So there's no additional premium. And of course, I'm saying additional premium because what are you paying? You're paying for that Medicare Part B.
Yeah, you're paying
always
for your
in forever unless always in forever unless the state pays that. But in the Medicare Advantage plans, the majority of them are zero monthly premium, no additional premium. Well, if on the Medicare supplement side you're paying $125, $130 a month, and everything is covered except for $230 once a year, right? And some copays on your medications, or you're paying zero additional premium, something's probably different, right? Something probably gives. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, again, Medicare Advantages are the pay-as-you-go. So just about everything's going to have a copay. Now, the nice thing is most of the copays are pretty reasonable type copays, unless, again, you have multiple hospital stays in a given year, that kind of stuff, or you get into some of the big stuff, chemo treatment, cancer, renal failure, that big stuff. And a lot of those are 20% copays in those Medicare Advantages, which obviously you can understand could be a pretty high copay.
Yeah.
But even with the Medicare Advantages, the Part C, Medicare Advantage, well, there is a maximum out-of-pocket called a MOOP, maximum out-of-pocket. So any one given year, lots of copays going out. If you ever pay enough copays out with a bad year to hit that maximum out-of-pocket, well, then the insurance company pays 100% after that. So, and maximum out-of-pockets out there, depending on what area of the country you live in, could be anywhere from $3,000 to about $6,500 is a max out-of-pocket.
Got it.
So people can kind of relate that to their group coverage, right? I mean, because group coverage, you're paying a premium. You typically got a deductible, $500, $600, $1,000, $1,500 deductible, and then you got 80/20 up to $5,000 or $6,000, right? So the Part C can be related to kind of group coverage. So your question was, how many parts are there? Well, A and B of Medicare, two originals. If we want a traditional supplement, we buy a supplement, we buy Part D. So we have A, B, and D. Or the other option is the Medicare Advantage Part C. And the Medicare Advantage Part C includes doctors, hospitals, and drugs in most cases. So it's got A, B, D in one plan called the Part C.
Got it.
So let me ask you a question. Is that clear as mud?
Sure. Yeah.
About clear as mud. About clear as mud, right? So again, this podcast was designed to help you just start thinking about some of the options. And there are some options, and some of the options are very, very good. But really, you need to counsel with somebody who can help you step through this. And the problem is, a lot of times people will jump on the internet and try to find their answers on the internet. And I always tell people all the time, Google. They're going to Google it. I'm going to Google it. Right? Google. But I tell people Google is like angels from heaven and Lucifer all wrapped up into one thing, isn't it? Because you get onto Google, you can find some awesome stuff, and you can find some not so awesome stuff. And the problem is you get on there looking for a certain answer, and you go from site to site to site. Next thing you know, 2.5 hours later, you don't have the answer you're looking for, but you know a whole lot about a whole bunch of other junk, right? I mean, so again, finding the proper answer is important. And the last thing you want to do, obviously, is try to put your name, your email address or something into one of those websites, because within 3 seconds you got what?
Spam.
19 emails, 16 guy people calling you from all across the country. It's kind of a mess. And most of the sites just say, hey, plug your zip code in here, plug your age in, and then we'll tell you what plans makes the most sense. Well, the problem is you can't pick a plan until you first understand what your options are.
Yeah.
I mean, does that kind of make sense?
Well,
every one of the sites say, every one of the sites say, put your zip code in, and we'll help you pick a plan. Well, you can't pick a plan until you know what the heck the options are.
Yeah.
That's the important. Education is the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a completely selfish question because of kind of what my wife and I want to do in the future, which is we would love to travel. But does somebody need to consider that? Whether they are, let's say they're just going to jump in an RV and they're, for their retirement, they want to travel the United States and see all sorts of places, or if maybe somebody has, a vacation property, they're going to spend 5 months in one place, 6 months in another, or 7 months or whatever. Is that something that they have to consider if they're going to be traveling when it comes to what plan they pick?
Yeah, that definitely are some factors to surely consider. Yeah, so I mean, it just depends on what type of health you got going on and those type of things. All the plans out there, to my knowledge, have emergency worldwide or emergency United States only travel. So again, even if you're in an HMO plan, HMO's Health Maintenance Organization, you have to use the doctors and hospitals in the network. There's a network, right? With all those plans in the retiree realm, the Medicare realm, they all offer you again emergency, worldwide, and urgent care services. So if you're traveling, no worries. Go to the closest facility. Emergency, it's going to be covered just like a network.
Okay.
But the one thing you said is, what if you spend 6 months out of the year in Florida? You got a house in Florida. Well, the key is if you're seeing a regular doctor for regular visits and you want to see a regular doctor, regular visits in Florida, well, now you have to make sure your plan's going to cover that. Because remember I said emergency, worldwide, and urgent care services. We'll just going to see a doctor for regular things because you got just a certain condition, not an emergency. So yeah, those are factors that you want to think through and consider, depending on what plan kind of makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you again for some contact info in a little bit so people can get to those resources. But before I do, is there anything else that you need to tell the audience to wrap up today's podcast?
So, and again, I know Medicare is kind of confusing. Again, the beautiful thing is when you get close to Medicare, my goodness gracious, it's a beautiful time because you can have some really pretty awesome coverage. But you have to understand there's ways where you do not have to sign up for Medicare. Like I said, if you hit Medicare age and you're on credible group coverage, either with you, with your employer, or your spouse's employer, you can opt to stay on that group plan as long as it's credible group coverage. And there's some definitions for that. And then you can sign up for Medicare at a later date. And by doing that, and once you come off that credible group coverage, you're going to be able to sign up for Medicare, no issues, no problems, no penalties, no late fees, no nothing. And here's where some confusion lies out there. Because when could you hit a penalty? Well, here's the penalties, right? So somebody hits 65. They're great and healthy. They're not on any group coverage, no health insurance coverage at all, but they're healthy. They think the heck with it. I don't want to pay the $170. I'm not going to sign up for a drug plan. I'm healthy. I'll sign up for that stuff later. You're not on credible group coverage, right? When all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 years later, they decide, ooh, I'm having some health issues. I need to sign up for a Medicare supplement. I need to sign up for a drug plan. Well, now, because you are eligible for Medicare, not on that credible group coverage, and you're signing up later, you got some problems. First of all, if you want to sign up for Medicare A and B, you're going to be able to sign up, but you're going to have to sign up in January, and it's going to start in July, right? So it's a 6 months window there when it's actually going to start, and you're going to have a Medicare Part B premium, a 10% penalty premium that you're going to pay for the rest of your life. And then you have a drug issue. So if you don't have credible drug coverage from the time you're eligible on Medicare, that drug penalty coverage is a 1% per month penalty. So in my example I just gave you a minute ago, a guy goes 5 years, never signs up for drug coverage because he's healthy, he's not taking no medications, or he's buying one or two inexpensive ones, so he doesn't sign up for a drug plan. 5 years later, he gets on some expensive ones, signs up for a drug plan. 5 years being off the coverage, 5 years, 12 times 6, that's 60 months, 1% per month. That's a 60% penalty
Jeez.
of the then current drug premium. And that penalty lasts how long?
Forever?
Till the day the Lord comes and gets you. It's a lifetime penalty.
Painful.
So there are some pretty serious penalties, but those apply if you don't follow the rules. Meaning, you hit 65, you're eligible for Medicare, or again, maybe you got qualified for Medicare because of disability, right? Still, those same rules apply. If you don't have that credible group coverage, you've got to put some coverage in place to avoid those penalties. And you just got to know that. There's a variety of other penalties that kind of float up. Here's another big one. You got to be cautious. If you're on an HSA, health savings account, you're putting money into your HSA, right? You're depositing money in your HSA. Great concept, beautiful. Well, here's the issue. If you sign up for Medicare and you stay on that group coverage HSA, and even if you're on the Medicare Part A free part to Medicare, right, you're not paying a premium, but you deposit money in your HSA, there's like a 50% IRS penalty.
Oh, jeez.
So you cannot put money into an HSA. You can't put new money into an HSA and be on Medicare. Now, if you already have an HSA, you can take that to the end. You can use that later and spend the money out of it for proper expenditures. You just can't add money to it.
Got it.
So again, there's some things you have to be sure that you follow the rules to be sure you avoid those penalties. And again, getting the proper information is important. So again, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you with that. You can get on our website, duckduckplan.com. and learn a little bit more about Medicare. Request from us a free complimentary copy of the Duck Book, because again, it talks about things that you should be experiencing come 65, help you understand some of that. Let us help you run the drug report to see which drug plan makes the most sense. I mean, some companies charge you a couple $100 for that drug report. And in the scheme of things, as expensive as drugs are, it'd probably be worth a couple $100. But guess what? We'll do that complimentary for you.
Oh, man.
Just so we're sure you make the proper decision. And guess what? If we help you, you decide to do that business with us, we get paid. And if you don't, that's okay too. But again, getting the proper information is crucial with that stuff. Absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. All right, I'm actually going to throw down one more thing. If the listener has a question that you didn't cover in today's podcast, can you give them an email address that they can actually just email their question? Because number one, I know that you will respond to that and answer their question right off the bat. But also, I know you're always looking for, what does the audience need to hear for a future podcast? And you can address it then as well.
Scott at ITC411.com. So that's Scott at ITC, like Igloo, Tom, Charlie, 411.com. Yeah, drop me a question. I'll be happy to respond back to you. And again, get on my website. I always tell people there's user-friendly websites, and ours is user-friendly. Get on, take a look at some of we have a couple videos on there, help you understand that. And you can actually book, right from our website, you can book a call with me. I mean, if you want like a 15-minute consultation call, I'll be no cost, complimentary. You can book a 15-minute call with me. You can book a half-hour call with me. You can book if you're in the area, you can book a live visit at my office. But again, drop me an email. Any way I can help you get those questions answered is I'm happy to do that. Because again, these are important topics.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really fantastic.
Well, good. I was able to reach out and learning more about Medicare is important. And again, I mentioned drugs. Man, it's so important to learn more. And there's other ways. There's other ways you can save money on medications, pharmaceutical programs, that kind of stuff. We don't have time to go into that today. But if you've got expensive drugs that you're concerned about, reach out to us. Let us help you determine what options you have.
Yeah.
Again, education, baby, that's the key.
That's it. That is the key. Again,
as always, man, love talking to you. Love doing these podcasts. I love helping to inform people.
Heck yeah. I mean, I get a front row to this information. I love it. I'm getting educated.
I know. Lucky guy
all
you.
the way.
Lucky guy you.
All right. Again, Scott, thank you so much. And of course, our last thank you goes to you, listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to The Scotty Show with Scott Leonardi. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Scott comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it really easy to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Complete Solutions, this is Eric Johnson reminding you it's time to get your ducks in a row.
Thank you for listening to The Scotty Show. Remember, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Live life like it's your job. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Complete Solutions, Inc. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice, tax advice, or legal advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.